record and get this one started. Thank you, Carol, for joining. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Awesome. So I'm going to do a quick introduction to the topic. Then I'll hand it off to a couple of our partners to do some introductions to who they are and what they represent, why they're here. And then I'm going to start with some of our strategies on cold outreach. So, my background is in B2B marketing, stint in sales for a few years, but mainly B2B SaaS marketing. So it was my job to go and get data, go and do a lot of retargeting efforts, work with sales hand in hand. I got really good at it and built a couple businesses with it. And when GDPR happened, the CMO organization that runs the CMO Data Summit, I can't remember their name, but they host it every year. They do the AI Summit, the CMO Data Summit. They reached out to me to put together a presentation for all of the CMOs. And my job was to show them how to do cold outreach in this new world of GDPR, given all the restrictions on data and all that kind of stuff. So I'll share a little bit about what was in that. But the main thing we want to do, and what we do with all of these types of calls and presentations and roundtables and all of this, is to weaponize our partner teams. We want you guys to own your stacks. We want you guys to have control over your sales and marketing systems. That's why we share free, easy, doable strategies that partner teams can execute. Today's no different. So first, let me introduce our data partner, Ocean.io. So Julian, why don't you talk real quickly about what Ocean is, and then I'll hand it over to Enrique real quick.
Yes. Hi, guys. Thanks, Alex, again for inviting us or me here to share a bit what Ocean is doing. Well, I'm working at Ocean since a bit more than a year and a half. I've basically been focusing on growth at Ocean. So as Alex, I have my fair share of knowledge now, maybe less than you, of course, but I've worked a lot with making lists, finding new ways and faster ways and more effective ways of creating lists for cold outreach, but also just to target the right people also within those lists. And I've actually also used DashDash for this, which is the other partner of our talk today. And basically also just a quick word on Ocean. What we've been doing now since, well, a bit more than 4 years is they've aggregated a data set of 20 million companies in Europe. Mainly, even though we have 1.5 in the US as well. Our main market is definitely Europe. And we want to just allow people to look through our database to find the customer profiles that they actually want to target. We have an engine that actually allows to reproduce a customer profile based on your best customer. So just to give a few words about this. And I think maybe now I can give the word to Enrique.
Yes, Enrique, please introduce DashDash.
Thank you, Alex, for inviting me. And hi, everyone. So essentially, I'm Enrique, so I'm the head of growth at DashDash. What we're doing is we are a spreadsheet where sales and marketing teams can build better tools to automate their processes, right? To really take ownership of their processes. So what this means is that inside the spreadsheet that you've built, you have integrations with company databases, with tools like BuiltWith, with email finders, with Google Analytics stack, so that you can really create lists of companies, find the right targets, add them to your CRM, all within a spreadsheet, just using your spreadsheet skills. So the goal today will be to show you one of those flows for lead generation, where you can see that you can now own the full stack of the lead generation process, and hopefully that will be helpful for you.
Yeah, thank you, Enrique. So I just shared in the chat with everybody what the template looks like. So we're going to give a little quick demo on how to use it, but the idea here is to use the tools that you have. You don't have to use DashDash, you don't have to use Ocean, but to go ahead and get a process of more or less automation to get some new agencies into your pipeline and deal with those. Zach had an amazing presentation last week. So if you haven't listened to that, if you weren't on that call, go back and listen to Zach's efforts on how he works sales into the marketing and partnerships and how that whole system works. A lot of you are dealing with different levels of complexity with CRM, plus obviously your sales leaders wanting to own and operate the cold systems. And that's for good reason, obviously. Not all of us are ready to do cold outreach in the way that our sales teams are doing it. There's a lot of potential risks on the domain side, the brand side, obviously. And it makes sense why, sales should own most of the outreach, but we're starting to get better at it. And some of you are sales leaders and should own that stack. So we have looked around and come to you with what we suggest as a very operable sales system. And that is going to include Leadfeeder as well. So Carol's got a sick toddler. She's going to jump in and out of this. But what we recommend doing is to first and foremost start collecting and visualizing what agencies are doing on your partnership side of the website. So in the directory, inside of the partner funnel all around, what agencies are visiting it, where they're coming from, and start to get an idea of the workflow there. Start to get an idea of who and what they are doing. So Leadfeeder allows you to do reverse IP analysis on the site. So I've been using Leadfeeder since they first launched on all of my websites. I just launched our new website, so I was planning on doing a demonstration from our Leadfeeder account on how we segment, but we didn't get enough data since last night to this morning to give you something that is worth looking at. But I'll hand it off to Carol if she's able to do a quick demo of Leadfeeder and share what they're going to be able to do for you. But Carol, is your toddler in a good place right now, or do you want me to wait?
He's running around. You might hear him in the background. So yeah, it's a good time as always, as it will be throughout the hour. I have a sick toddler, so
I'll kick it off. If you want to get your screen set up, I'll allow sharing. But what we want to do here, real quick. So what I have set up on my end, I'll just tell you guys. So I obviously have a two-sided marketplace. So I'm dealing with SaaS companies and I'm dealing with agency partners. I have pages on my site that are focused on agencies and pages focused on SaaS partners. But more than that, Leadfeeder allows me to filter based on page views, but also based on industry. So I can tell Leadfeeder to create a list, segment off a list, of companies that have visited my site that are in the industry of internet or in the industry of marketing and advertising. And then I can tell Leadfeeder to do something with that data, push it to the CRM, zap it to my Slack, create an email, do all those sorts of things. So go ahead and show what this is and how you would set it up to find and push agency data. Oh, I think you are. Hold on.
I am on mute. Yeah. So as Alex mentioned, we give a lot of flexibility on how to slice and dice your data based off of the targets you're going after. So right off the bat, Leadfeeder, we just give you a big data dump of all the companies visiting your site, but we can create custom feeds with many different filter options. So for example, you can see all the people visiting certain pages. So it could be a blog, it could be the pricing page, it could be an agency program page. So let's, for example, on our website, I'm going to do a page URL contains the word partners, or you could always just select the specific URL and then see what comes off of there. So in the last, let me see, in the last 7 days, I can see that we recognize 31 companies looking at our partners page. So I can always just save this partners page. And I can even add more things and say like, okay, the industry needs to be a certain, marketing advertising, or I can say, if I focus on US and Canada, and then I have, a team in Europe who focus on Europe, you can always add in like country information or down even to the city level. So I can, let me just say United States, just for example. And then from here, I can always have it automated to be pushed into Slack or your CRM system to create a deal or ping certain partner managers. But basically, right now it narrows down to 5 companies. So let's see, Site Seeker in Atlanta looks interesting, might be interesting because they're in marketing advertising industry. I could see they came directly and, October 8th and also October 9th. So then, yeah, you can also see the source and the medium. So you can see if they came from a paid campaign, social posting, or organic traffic, or directly.
I love
yeah,
it.
anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one more thing, if you can show them how to do internet versus marketing, just to give you an idea. I mean, your sites are going to pull people in all different directions. Everybody knows that the homepage and the partner page are not going to be your highest traffic pages. You're going to have pages like your blog homepage is going to get a lot of traffic. Your FAQs page is going to get a lot of traffic. So make sure you are not limiting yourself too much in the beginning. My first suggestion would be to set up the filters site-wide by industry, do marketing and advertising, and then some agencies will they will choose the industry of software consulting. I believe it's something like that, software management consulting, something along those lines. So do those two so you can capture all the agencies and you can see what pages they visited, and then start to boil it down a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have an idea of what's going on, so talk to me real quickly, Carol, before your toddler pulls you away, about how we can connect this to CRM and what you guys do internally to make sure that sales isn't going to say, hey, this isn't cool, let's stop this. Or how do you guys do the outreach or anything along those lines with pushing it into CRM, getting the email, and then how sales versus partnership handles that part of the process?
Yeah. So he came in the opposite. So basically so we can set up rules to say, okay, if someone visits certain pages, they've been on our site, for X amount of time, push into our CRM system. And you could do that through the automation, through the custom feeds, or you could set it up here manually and say, push a new activity into Pipedrive. And then let me see this. Oh, so this is already connected. So you can see if there's any open deals and who the owner is, just for reference.
I love that.
That's from the automation standpoint. Yeah, you just create the custom feed and set up automation to say define action, send to Pipedrive. Or we also integrate with Salesforce, Zoho, HubSpot, and Microsoft Dynamics as well. So you can configure it and say, okay, make sure this is going to be the owner, create a deal. This is the pipeline they go into, and then create an activity with a due date. So it's set and ready to go. Now, we basically just have a Google Doc that we share with the rest of the team to say, like, okay, if an agency comes in and they meet these criteria, hands off, pass it along to us, and don't accidentally. So that's just an internal thing. We train everyone to pass it along.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, so there's no channel conflict going on. It's all calibrated correctly so that you check to see who owns that lead. And then if no one owns it, what is your best practice for outreach? Do you include a salesperson in that? How do you go ahead and reach out if it is an agency?
So interesting enough, I don't know how everyone else sets it up, but we separate our partnerships team from our sales team. And within the partnerships, we have outbound reps and inbound reps. And so an outbound rep from our partnerships team will reach out. Typically, first we browse LinkedIn to see, who the person would be. So within Leadfeeder, we have the links to the LinkedIn profile directly, so you can click through, or we can see if we have any available contacts. So in this case, we have Jeffrey Burrows, and I could get his email, check out his link. So he's like the CEO of Truth Web Design, and he's from Texas. And it looks like the visit is from there and matches up. So he's likely the person visiting our website. He looked at our pricing page. We know that he uses Pipedrive because he read a blog about get your leads to Pipedrive. So that's how we can really tailor a personalized message. So we usually on LinkedIn follow them first, see if they have any open discussions and start commenting on it. And then we do the send connection request, because 99% of the time they're more willing to accept the connection request after you've engaged with them somehow. So we don't go for the cold outreach. And I think that's more GDPR compliant as well, since we are a Finnish-based company. Of course, the rules don't apply here in the US, but it's still best practice to build a relationship. Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, we hit them through LinkedIn, and then we have their email address. and the phone number is often on their website for agencies. And so it's just a cadence there. I mean, next week we actually have a webinar running about the ultimate sales cadence. And we have people from like Gong and Vidyard and
wait, with Joey?
Yeah.
With Joey. Oh, that worked out. Okay. So if you share that link in the chat, if you have it, Carol, so everyone can jump into that. So we have a partner stack account with Leadfeeder to get an offer your guys' way, but we do not get commission on that. I want to make that clear, right, Carol? We don't get commission. So if you guys want to join Leadfeeder under the discount that Carol is going to be able to set up for you, there's the link, and then join that webinar. Thank you so much, Carol. I know you weren't ready to do that, but I wanted to make sure you got a second to do that. So that's a perfect dovetail into some GDPR stuff. So I know, Sunir, you're in here. You talk about GDPR compliance a lot. I talk about it a little bit in that presentation I shared in the chat as well. But Julian, you talk about it every day, all day, because you're selling data to all of these companies that are using it for cold outreach. Please do me a favor and give us the quick elevator pitch, and any specific questions, everybody, please ask in the chat. What do you say about GDPR compliance with regards to cold data?
Yeah, good question, Alex. First of all, I'm not a lawyer, so if there's very specific questions, please give them along, and I'll make sure our lawyer can answer those. But in general, with cold outreach, for instance, what also touches upon Ocean.io directly, because we provide certain emails that we can find and scrape on websites. GDPR has this rule that you should actually reach out to a person only with an intended reason. So a reason that led somebody to contact another person for instance, commercial reasons. And that is this area that is defined. Obviously, the problem is then what is a reason good enough for that? And that's a bit the role of interpreting certain situations. But what is very important is that every country has their own set of rules regarding marketing that complement what's happening in GDPR. And for instance, in Germany, you need a double opt-in to actually be allowed to send a cold email, which means the person has to first enter your willingly or unwillingly a list of persons to actually allow you to contact them. And then they have to allow you to send them their email as well. So it's getting quite complex there. In other regions in Europe, there it's a single opt-in, and then in other regions in Europe, it's just an opt-out. So these are the three main categories that, I mean, we face every day, and there's tons of articles on this. I think I also shared with Alex a couple of links there where you guys can also read more specific comments.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to have some notes for you guys with the strategy, and we do have a cold email document in progress of getting created. And I'm not done with you, Julian, if you want to pull up your screen here while I'm talking to get that ready. Yeah. So the idea here, just to catch everyone up, is whether you have a system that's mainly focused on, owned by sales, or you get a little bit of ownership, if you can start accessing the data that's coming into your site via Leadfeeder, if you can start to create a little bit of ad hoc processes for yourself to prove out a system, obviously it's in your best interest. We're going to show you how to automate it if you are a little bit further along. And that means Ocean, that means DashDash, that means Leadfeeder, and connection to your CRM. And we do this for agencies. This is something we are actively training B2B agencies on how to do using our partner stack, of course. But please, Julian, hypothetically, Leadfeeder noticed that one of the agencies or an agency visited my partnership funnel, did not convert to a form, meaning they're not in the CRM. And I have that URL now. What can I do to go ahead and enrich that data and then find lookalike data, meaning more agencies like that agency?
So I'm gonna show you this on Ocean. I want to make two distinguishments here. We have an API connection where you can directly enrich a CRM. So for example, if somebody plugs in a domain or URL of a company, we would send through our API the rest of the data to fill the blank data points. So that's one side of the story. And then we have also connections to CRMs such as HubSpot, Pipedrive, and Salesforce, where we can just send data and analyze data within the CRM, which is another story. So there is this distinguishment that I'd like to make clear. But then, as Alex said, if now you have a domain of an agency and you would like to maybe find more companies that look like that agency. So what you can do on Ocean, and this is our search function. I'm going to use an agency that we met through Alex, Six and Flow. So you can imagine that they looked at their pricing page, and you would like to find companies that are similar to Six and Flow. And for this, you can use Ocean. I'm going to generate a first list here of companies that have used similar content as Six and Flow to describe their value proposition on their website. And we basically have analyzed this content and compared it to the rest of our database to sort them by the most alike or similar to each other. And in this case, you can see that we have, I'm just going to make this a bit smaller, we have more than 10,000 results of companies similar to Six and Flow. But obviously, there's a certain degree of similitude that you can see here, which is based on the content of the website. In a second step, then you would like to maybe refine your search because you don't need to speak to all the very big companies. You want to speak to, let's say, companies that have between 11 and 50 and 1 and 10 employees. And you want to maybe make sure that they're in the US. Right now, just I mentioned it before, but we have around 1.5 million companies in the US. Yeah, there's still some results, as you can see here, still more than 10,000. And then maybe we would like to make sure that they have some website traffic. So let's say from 2,000 to 5,000, or maybe a bit more, 50,000. And then you can see now we are at 2,818 results, which is a way to refine what you're looking for. The idea is that here you can then see how alike those companies are. Select, let's say, the top 3 that you would like to reach out to. Create your own list. And add the companies. When you have added the companies here to our test list, you can see that you can then directly export them to the CRM of your wishes. Again, it's HubSpot, PowerDrive, and Salesforce that we can directly send our data to. But you can also download it as a CSV file or as a LinkedIn audience. I can show you also how it looks for the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You basically would copy paste this in the search function for companies on your LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So it's going to restrict your searches to those 3 companies. So yeah, that's I think the quickest way to reproduce a list of similar companies to Six and Flow. What I also wanted to show you quickly is that you can play around with the industries by, for example, including the top 3 industries that Six and Flow has been categorized in by our algorithm, so that you refine your search to really just companies that do advertising as a main business with marketing, just to make sure that you want to have only those. And there we go. I think that's all, Alex.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's what we needed. So if you don't already have a data tool, check out ocean.io. Quickly, the CTA, if they are interested, we have free use of Ocean for those in the accelerator. So please check it out. Julian, what's the exact verbiage for the offer?
The offer, yes. So we have an offer that, so we usually only make packages of yearly packages for 3,000 euros. The offer is that we would offer 3 months on top of your package if you were to take a full year. However, we understand that sometimes it's also a bit difficult to commit long term. So what we offer as well is to, instead of pay our pay trial of 250 euro for 2 weeks, you will get access for it for half price. So you could pay 125 euros, get access for 2 weeks, and understand if Ocean has the good enough data actually for what you're looking for. Yeah.
I love it. All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Julian. And everyone, check out Ocean if you're interested. Take them up on that free offer and get some good data. So, Enrique, we built something pretty cool for everybody. We are going to slowly add more and more use cases to this template. As Enrique has time, he has to go in and manually create it. So we're not going to have every use case available immediately, but obviously it's just there to give you an idea of how to use DashDash to find data that works for you guys. But Enrique, what is this template and how can we use it? Let's do a quick demo.
Yeah, perfect. Then, so as I was explaining before, essentially DashDash is a spreadsheet where you can build your own internal tools, right? So the way it works is what you can see here is the template that we've built. So this will be accessible by anyone that goes to our templates marketplace and then starts using it. And it really makes use of our integrations. And integrations are really, instead of, for example, if you want to do something with Crunchbase, instead of having to have a Crunchbase Pro account to look up companies there, etc., we abstract all of that complexity into simple spreadsheet formulas that you can use. And this is true for any integration, email finders, your CRM, etc., etc. So what we've built here is a flow to first find companies that are relevant to you, then identify if they use a technology that you might be looking for, then find key personas in those companies, and finally find their email addresses. And then I'll walk you through how it works. So here what we see is our setup, so where we will define our filter criteria. Then we will generate a list of companies that will show up here. We will select what is our technology lookup. Okay, we will use a provider called BuiltWith to do this. And then which profiles are we looking for? Okay. And then essentially we will export the key relevant people to a separate table, and then you can enrich with the email. Okay, so how does this work? So initially I want to start my search from, if I don't have a list of companies yet, I want to start by generating lists of companies, right? So here I'll say, I want around 50 employees in New York, and the industry that I'm looking for is marketing and advertising. Okay. This works for any industry in LinkedIn. So I have here a separate helper sheet where you can see all of the industries that you can filter from. But for now, let's select just marketing and advertising, right? So then what is happening in the background is that we're only using spreadsheet formulas. So when I click this button, we're actually calling this formula search companies Gauss, which is one of the integrations, which really means that if you are a little bit spreadsheet savvy, then you can deconstruct and construct back your own flows. So let's go ahead and do this. I'll click. Now we're getting the data. We will automatically move it to this table once the data is in, and then it should be. So then I basically generated a bunch of companies. You see here their size 11 to 50, their name, their domain, their LinkedIn URL. For all of them, you see, so we have 841 companies that match the profile here. Right? And now this is where I want to do enrichment, right? So let's say that I'm really only interested in companies that, these agencies that use HubSpot. So I have here using BuiltWith a sample list of technologies that you can look up. So you can look up if a company uses Salesforce, HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, Xero, etc. But there are thousands of these technologies here. So there's just a helpful link here. And then the same thing for the profile. So I might be targeting C-level. I might be targeting people with a specific role called HubSpot partner, someone with a specific Salesforce partner, Salesforce consultant. So I can just add here the types of profiles that I'm looking for. So that when I go back here to search, I'll come here and I can say, okay, actually, I want Salesforce or I want HubSpot. So what do I want here in the index? In this case, let's say that I want HubSpot, companies that use HubSpot, and I'm looking for C-level, right? Or CEO, co-founder, founder, president. So anyone that has these keywords on their LinkedIn profile. So what will happen here is when I click this button, we will evaluate. So we will basically look up the tech stack of this domain. So we will look up all of the technologies that this domain uses, and we will filter by HubSpot. So if it has HubSpot, it will show up a yes. If no, it has a no. And if it shows up a yes, then it will enrich with the profiles. So let's go again and do this. And I think as you can start seeing, this is pretty flexible depending on the data that you're looking for, the integrations that you can pull in. So we start seeing, some no's, some yeses. the spreadsheet table is being updated. So we are finding, for example, here, 4 profiles that match those keywords. Here we found 1, here we found 1, you know, here we found 99 because it's probably a very generic name. Lucid, there might be a lot of Lucids on LinkedIn, then we can filter it forward. But, you know, and now this is basically generating for these 800 profiles, the people that we were looking for.
I love it.
And then, yeah, Alex?
Okay, keep going.
And I was just gonna say, just as an example, here we're filtering for HubSpot, but you can go inside here and you can see all of the domains that we found. So we found WordPress, JavaScript library, like a lot of different things. So this is really flexible to what you might be looking for technology-wise. So, you know, you're still going through the data. These are a lot of profiles, but then I'll show you what is happening. So you see that this is still loading, but as it is loading, we're adding people to this people sheet here. So, you know, for example, from this community company, we found CEO and co-founder, president, co-founder, founder as well. Here we have LinkedIn profile, so I could easily look up and see if this person matches the company that I was looking for and if it really has the profile that I was looking for.
Yeah, and one of the caveats here, Communo is not a marketing and advertising. They're not an agency. They just have themselves defined on LinkedIn as marketing and advertising.
Right.
You will have to go ahead and look through the profiles and show them how you can select the profiles that you want to go ahead and enrich.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good point. Currently, we can only look up the companies by industry. So you might have some false negatives. Here, of course, you know, you have then the company name, the domain, you can explore the LinkedIn profile. And this being a spreadsheet, then you can eliminate entries, filter the results, sort them, etc. We are planning on adding sometime early next year also the ability to look up by the specialties so that you can also really target the agencies by the specialties on their LinkedIn. But right now it's, you know, by industry.
Okay, got it. Awesome.
And then when we have, yeah, go ahead, Alex.
No, keep going, keep going.
Now, what I was just going to say is that now, for example, I have my list of all of the contacts, right, that it generated. Then I can look up, you know, Centrify, Centriply, Awesome Truck, etc. Let's say that now I filter the people that I'm looking for, and let me just for example, let's say that I'm not interested in these. I'm only interested in these few. So I've kind of validated here. Now I want to get their email addresses. What's happening is we have an integration with hunter.io. Okay. So now we will say get emails and we will ping hunter.io and get the email from these contacts. Right? So in this case, the C-level of this company, we have here their emails. We also go through zero bounds so that you can validate some of your emails before you send any emails, right? So make sure that they don't bounce. We're actually in the process of improving our email finder so that we have something that's even better than what we currently offer. But this is essentially the flow, right? We're still looking at a few emails here, but that would be it, right? Kind of we start at a high level with companies. If you already have companies, then we can just enrich with the LinkedIn profiles and the emails, for example. And you kind of build this flow that matches the lists and the criteria that you're looking for. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Okay, I'm going to take you off spotlight here real quick, and then we'll talk to what to do now. Okay, so we have a couple of questions here. The questions that were submitted. Thank you, by the way, Stacy, for asking about GDPR. So I'm going to put all those questions and the answers in the notes. We had a couple questions that were asked that were not mentioned, I don't think addressed on this. One of them is related to the fields that you should be looking for when you're enriching data on agencies, right? So when you're composing a cold outreach strategy for agencies, we have a document that hopefully all of you have seen with all the good and bad examples of cold outreach. But one thing that I very rarely see, because I get these emails sent to me from our agencies, they literally CC me on replies and say, no thanks, but talk to Alex. It looks like you may need his help. So I see them, and all of them have pretty high level dynamic text and high level just blanketed, hey, we'd love to work with you and your type of company and all of that. If you are not going in and further enriching your data set for the specialties that they advertise on LinkedIn, and I'll show you real quickly in this little section here, but there is an about section on every agency's LinkedIn profile. So this is TrueJ. This is a company that we work with, an agency we work with, and they advertise themselves as integration service providers, managed service providers, onboarding, CRM, etc. So if you are using Sales Navigator, obviously you can use their keyword lookup tool and look for these specific keywords. What I do is I have our virtual assistant go and copy all of these specialties to a section in the row of that agency in our data set. So, you know, we'll use DashDash and Ocean to find the large data sets, to find the emails, to get that bigger process started. Once I've whittled down the final 100 or so agencies that I want to reach out to in a segment, like integration agencies, I will make sure I do that by using these specialties. So I'll add all of the specialties to the rows. And then when I want to do an outreach sequence, I'll type in integration in the data set in Airtable. I use Airtable to do this. Airtable will show me all of the agencies that mention integration in their about section here or in their specialties. Specialties is a little more targeted because about is marketing language that has just a lot of general stuff that's not very useful. But the specialties are what they select for LinkedIn to market themselves as. They want LinkedIn to know and the LinkedIn audience to know that they do integration services. So it's a little more targeted, and they're obviously keywords. So if you have integration services, other agencies will have it mentioned the exact same way, the exact same capitalization and spacing and all of that good stuff. So have your virtual assistant copy that to the data set. Now you have a data set that is segmented by agencies that do integration services, with HubSpot mentioned as well. Maybe you want to further segment that down. You can give that data set of like 10 agencies back to Ocean to go ahead and enrich more like that and do the same practice on top of that. But the bigger picture here is just making sure that you are adding their specialties, their LinkedIn specialties to the data set. And then that will give you a good indication of what they want to be known for. So if I have a co-marketing campaign that I want to do with agencies like TrueJ to get them into my funnel, what I would do is say, hey, marketing, we haven't talked about migrating HubSpot, and we have an integration with HubSpot, so it's relevant to our audience, and we want to talk to agencies. Why don't we do a webinar or a campaign related to some content around HubSpot migration, how agencies do it. Let's get TrueJ on that, and let's do something with them, and then also mention the same campaign to other agencies that advertise HubSpot migration, and then maybe get 10 agencies involved in that campaign, do some co-marketing with them, get to know the agency, align with them. And then we are going to put together, we are putting together as we speak, I'm trying to get it done, but we're going to have a full cadence and a sequence here so that you can get these agencies into conversations with your marketing manager, your partner marketing manager, if you have one, or yourselves, and then you can transition them into the track, right? And there's a very good way to do that, a very specific way to do that, so you don't obviously look like you're doing a bait and switch campaign where you offer the co-marketing opportunity, you get them on the phone, and you immediately start pitching your product, which is what you don't want to do. You want to nurture. You want to jab, right hook is what we mentioned a lot, the old Gary Vaynerchuk method. You want to give your partners a couple things every time before you ask them for something back. So I was just talking to Zach at Unstack about this on our call, but the objective and the rule of thumb for you, your partner team, anybody you hire underneath you that's going to do this is if you're about to talk to an agency and you haven't given them something yet, or that last call was a sales related call, meaning you asked them for a lead on that last call and you're about to get on the phone with them, have something to give before you ask for anything in return. So make sure the last two calls were positive for the agency. You gave them something before you get on that call and ask them for something in return. And that way, every time you ask them for something, they're going to want to give something back to you. That's just the mentality, the best practice. So I'm going to put together that document, and I'm going to make sure that you guys all have the full strategy, Ocean.io, DashDash, Leadfeeder. Scott, you weren't here for that, but the whole transition is Leadfeeder gives you the data on who's visiting what pages of your site. You give Leadfeeder segmented filters to make sure that marketing and advertising industry companies go into the agency bucket, Those get pushed into the CRM if they don't already exist. Leadfeeder has a duplication process to make sure you're not adding leads that already exist. Then you turn on Ocean.io to enrich that agency contact for the data and more agencies like that agency. If you just want to run, hey, go find a bunch of data on some agencies, DashDash is a great tool to go ahead and do some enrichment as well. And then you run your cold outreach process. So instead of talking about the cold outreach process on this call, I'm going to save that stuff for one-on-ones, but I'm going to give you guys the cold email best practices document. That's all the notes, my comments, and why each email is good or bad. What about it is good? What about it is bad? So I'll give you that link after this in Slack. And then we have one more, which is the actual full workflow of how to take cold data, put them through this sales system, enrich it, find more like that, and then obviously reach out to them with a cadence that works. The final thing that I recommended to some of you on our one-on-ones, but I want to say it here, is if you do not have an evergreen drip campaign for agencies, not a newsletter. I think I put that out in one of our recent strategy sessions, but not a newsletter. You may call it a newsletter internally, but you do not want to talk about newsletters to your agency. No one wants to be in a newsletter. Unfortunately, there are maybe very few of them that are actually super valuable that we all love, but partner newsletters are god-awful on average. I'm not saying any of yours are. I haven't seen all of yours, but what you want is a newsletter internally, but an email that goes out to all of your agency leads and partners with co-marketing opportunities that are coming up, with actionable strategies, links to those, with maybe one highlight of your recent activity with a top partner, right? But you got to make sure those are super valuable. And then all of your leads, after you've reached out to them to book a call, meaning you're going to talk to them about their business, you're going to give them something that very first call, put them into the evergreen drip, ask them if it's okay, let them know that, hey, you share all the opportunities to work with you guys and all the opportunities to highlight your agency and everything that you've done between that and the last one. Get them into that evergreen drip. And then you do not have to worry about sales. You don't have to worry about selling these agencies. Your goal is to get them into a cadence of conversation, monthly conversations that are all positive. They know your product. They know the partnership. They know all of that stuff. You do not have to keep trying to sell these agencies. If you have to, obviously it's not going to be a good relationship and you're probably going to burn them anyways. So your job is just to keep the cadence of conversation going. If you need ideas on what to talk about on the next call, ping me in Slack. Let me know agency name and where they're at, and I'll give you a good couple of ideas for how to work with that agency and how to structure that call. Unless anybody has any final questions, I think we addressed, there was one more question posted in Airtable. Let me just do it. What are the best strategies for bringing in new partner leads and putting discovery calls into the calendar? Yeah, so that's going to be something we'll have to do on a one-on-one, but I hope everybody got something from this. Hopefully you guys are all going to load Leadfeeder. There is a free version of that, or I think a free 14 days. So get sales, get product, get whoever you need agreement from to go ahead and load it and start seeing what data comes through. I think you'll all love it. Check out Ocean, check out DashDash, check out our template that we built for you guys. Unless anybody has any final questions, thank you, Enrique. Thank you, Carol, for jumping on. Even though you have a toddler running around and you weren't expecting that, thank you so much for agreeing to share that little demo. And thank you, Julian from Ocean, our partner at Ocean.io. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Bye.
Take care.